Welcome to the Nurse Mark Podcast, where we talk about everything health, happiness, cannabis. We'll delve into all aspects of what it means to live a powerful, healthy life. Everything from exercise to nutrition to mindfulness, and how to use cannabis as a means to alleviate some of the most common health issues we face. My motivation and passion come from the fact that I personally had to explore all these areas to deal with lifelong depression and mood disorder. For me, it's personal. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Hey, folks, welcome to the Nurse Mark Podcast. This week's episode, I have the pleasure of sitting and chatting with my good friend, Praveen Ramanathan. Praveen and I are both members of the Entrepreneurs Organization. We've known each other for 6 years, and he is one of the most spiritual, centered people that I know. And we're going to get to talk to him about his growing up in India, how he came to the United States, what it was like to start companies, and how his spirituality has really affected his business life and his life overall. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right, folks, welcome to the Nurse Mark Podcast. And my guest today is Praveen Ramanathan. Is that how you say it?
Yes, Praveen Ramanathan. Yes.
I've known you long enough that I should know how to say your name. And I hope I got it right. And I think I did. Praveen, welcome to the Nurse Mark Podcast.
Thank you.
So happy to have you here. Now, we have so many things that we can discuss because we've been friends for a while now, for a few years.
Yes.
And the way that we met was through Entrepreneurs Organization, which you have that wonderful EO shirt on. And so I wanted to have you as a guest on the Nurse Mark Podcast because you come from a different background than the background that I come from. And that was one of the things that EO introduced me to, was this concept that, okay, I'm not coming at it from a perspective of some kid from the south of Boston who's just a small business owner. Now it's like I have friends around the world from different varying backgrounds, and they just have added so much to my life. And you, especially, you and I have this bond of having this very deep spiritual life. And we have great conversation around that. So I love the fact that you're on the podcast today and that we're going to get a chance to talk about a lot of different things. So you did not grow up in the United States.
I didn't. I grew up in a very small town, well, all over the place in India, really. My dad was in the government services. He was a railways employee, the railways being the largest employer in the entire world. They have, I think, something like 700,000 people working. It's an incredible organization.
Uh-huh.
And part of being in the government service was my dad used to move. His job was such that they would move him every couple of years. So India as a country, this was back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. When it started out, was there was a very socialist leanings in terms of how the economic structure was, and so a lot of India was under the government. Basically, the government ran everything. They ran the railways, the airline industry, they ran the entertainment industry. And one fun fact was that growing up, there was only one television station that was, available. It was called Doordarshan, and it was just it would only run for about 5 hours every day, and run from 6 in the evening to about 10, 11ish in the evening. And the programming was just riveting programming for a kid growing up. It would be essentially the news from 6 to 6:30 in Hindi, one of the languages in India. Then from 6:30 to 7, it would be the news again in English. And then from 7 to 7:30, it'd be in Tamil, and then from 7:30 and so on. So, you'd basically learn about the world 7 times over.
Oh my gosh. Each in a different half an hour segment of language.
Each in a different half an hour session of language. And then there used to be this program called Krishi Darshan, which was like a a farmers program where they would teach farmers how to grow better crops. And so, I was left with a lot of time growing up in different parts of the country of India. Each state in India has its own cuisine, has its own language. So I grew up learning like 7 different languages, Indian languages and English.
Yeah.
And so it was just this rich experience of a lot of different kind of diverse cultures within India, a lot of different languages, a lot of different cuisines, and making new friends every couple of years, a new set of friends. So it was, so I was in India for about, 20, 25 years of my life before I immigrated to the US. I came here to do my master's in computer science. So I have a bachelor's in computer science. And one of the things that I think back and reflect upon my journey during my early years in India is, at that point I didn't have a full sense of it, but how deep spirituality, philosophy, and kind of kindliness is built into the fiber of the society over there. Neighbors helping neighbors, everybody knows your name, literally. Like, if we used to live in an apartment complex, and neighbors used to walk into our home, kids used to walk, the door would always be open. It's such a friendly, kind, kind of almost too kind in some ways. Not enough privacy. There's a billion people living there.
Right. Now, do you think that kindliness and in sort of the cultural thing of getting along and helping each other out, is that a function of just the number of people that are all living together, do you think? Or is it just how your particular culture has evolved over a long period of time?
I think it could be a little bit of both. I think a lot of what the culture is about teaches, basically it's a country that's very unique in that it has a lot of different cultures, a lot of different religions. So Hinduism is the primary religion in India. Buddhism came out of India. The Buddha was a prince living in India. And there's Christianity, Sikhism, which is another religion, certainly Islam. So, growing up, I had friends of every cultural inclination and religious perspective. And I think that makes for this vibrant society where there's a great deal of acceptance of everybody else's perspective, recognizing that everybody is different, but everybody is also the same, right? Everybody's trying to, do their part in the world, do their duty in the world, and really trying to make the world a better place while, growing ourselves. And so that, for some reason, it's certainly taught. Some of that is taught in schools, but also I think there's just a cultural inclination within the country to where there's an embracing of that perspective. And I compare that, now that I've been in America, I'm an American, been here for a good 25 years here. It's not that different in America either. I mean, the sense of caring, the sense of wanting to help others. I think some of those are just human traditions. They're not Indian traditions. Agree. They're not American traditions. They're just human traditions.
Right, right. And from my first introduction to sort of Indian culture came in 1998 when I went on a yoga retreat. And that was before, it was at the beginning of when yoga really took a foothold in the United States. And so it was primarily women who were interested and who were moving it along, which was different than I think from the traditional Indian way, which was men did yoga, right? And so I got involved and introduced to just the long, multi-thousands and thousands of years of history of really what you mentioned, which was philosophy. The Yoga Sutras and Patanjali and all of these other, the Bhagavad Gita and all of these different spiritual texts that I had no knowledge of prior to that. But once, I was introduced to those, it was just this amazing amazing moment of recognition that you're right. It's just everybody is spiritual in nature, right? And it's just different cultures have different ways of expressing it, and it's always the same message underneath. So it was this amazing moment. So you came to the United States to study for your master's. And so how did you come to that decision? So you're living in India for 20, 25. How old were you when you came to the United States?
I was 22.
So 22. So first 22 years, you're in India. Life's good. You got great family, friends. And, you mentioned you made a lot of friends because you had to move around a lot.
Yeah.
And how did you decide, you know what? I'm going to pack everything up and I'm going to leave everybody I know. And I'm just going to come to America. And first of all, listen, did you have a full boat ride? I mean, did your parents hand gobs of money to you and say, Praveen, here, get on the plane, go to America, have a great life? Or was it something different?
It was just a suitcase filled with billions and billions of dollars. No, I landed. So I'll tell you a little bit about it. So again, growing up in India, this is the 80s and the 90s, right? Everything's owned and operated by the government. So not a lot of opportunities there in terms of, one's career growth, right? And it was just about around that time that that India kind of started to open up its economy, and things that more.
This is prior to all of the outsourcing that we've known with collaboration with India, which has happened in the last 20 years.
20 years, yeah. So this is much before that. This is 10 years probably before that happened, or a few years before that happened, and so it was right around the time also that kind of the internet came into being, and so we're talking about kind of 92 to 96, that time frame. And and for me as an engineer, I'm an entrepreneur now. It's not surprising that I wanted to be where all the action was, particularly in technology. Technology's always played a big part in my life. It's pretty much the only thing I really know. So at that point, when I heard about the internet, and really wanted to embrace it a little bit, and so I came here to do my master's on a scholarship at a lab in New Jersey at the Hypermedia Center of Multimedia Research over there, and spent 2-3 years just doing basic research on the internet and how to maximize the effectiveness of the internet in various shapes and forms. And so that's really what got my interest. When I was growing up as an engineer, really wanted to come here and be part of the research community and really help put my entire mind into research around the internet.
Wow. And so you end up in New Jersey.
I do.
And I'm going to assume you really didn't have a suitcase full of billions of dollars. You just showed up and...
I showed up. I had, I remember, I think I had $75 in my wallet that my dad basically said, okay, here's what you'll need. So go get him, son. So I landed up in New Jersey, and my vision of America, I say this seriously, but I'd grown up reading like Archie comics and watching Star Trek in the 80s, and so I had this vision of America that, oh my God, just this absolute land of gold and gilt, right? And I land in New Jersey at 8:30 p.m. in the evening, and it's not in the middle of Newark, not just the most exciting place to be in for a 22-year-old kid who knows nothing about America. So the interesting story I'll share this is, so I'm, for the first year, I'm bunking with 3 other guys in a 1-bedroom apartment in Kearney, which is kind of next to Newark. And this is our first day. We don't have, all I have is a suitcase filled with all the belongings, my clothes and such. And so we get into the apartment. We're walking down to ShopRite, which is the grocery store, to buy milk and bread. And we see a dumpster, and what do we see in the dumpster? We see two mattresses in the dumpster. And we're like looking at each other. And we're like, all right, we're not going to sleep on the floor tonight. At least we get to sleep on a mattress. So we look this way, we look that way, and make sure no one's going to steal this mattress from the dumpster. We pull it out, and this thing is disgusting. I mean, I wouldn't go near it now, but at that time, we had leaves and all sorts of stuff. We were scraping it off. I still remember as I was cleaning it, one of the springs cut my finger, and so I was bleeding on this old mattress. But
I'm glad you're here right now. I'm
glad I didn't die.
You pulled a mattress out of a dumpster in the town next to Newark, New Jersey, and cut your finger on it, and you lived to tell about it. That itself is a miracle.
So it was fun times, and at that time I literally had no money. We were just living hand to mouth on a stipend, but I was so happy. And there was really, I had no cares in the world at that point. I would go home to my lab and lab to home. And, it didn't matter that I didn't have a car. It didn't matter that I didn't have, anything at that point. It was just, I was doing my work. I was happy about it. And I had a great, great mentor, my professor over there. And he taught me so many things that, to this day, I still use. And so to me, it's, I look back on those days and I say one can be happy without a whole lot. You don't need much to be happy,
right?
And over my journey, the rest of the journey in my life, I've you forget those things. You kind of forget what you need to be happy. And I went on this. For me, it's been a little bit of a rediscovery journey. To really understand my purpose in life, what I really want to do, and where the rest of my life energy should go towards. So that's kind of how I started.
So you got here, you got your master's in computer science, and you started a company. You must have worked for a few people before that, but you started a company. Now. Yeah. You're down the entrepreneurial path.
Yeah. So I worked at the lab for a couple of years, got my master's, and then this was when the internet boom just was happening. I mean, this is the late 90s, early 2000s, just before 9/11.
Oh yeah.
And it was just crazy, right? The stock market was exploding.
Oh. They were printing money. I was in the tech business in the support area, and whoa. Man, you could just print money. It was crazy. It really was.
It was
during the .com boom, before it all fell apart.
So the .com boom, I joined the workforce, the American workforce, right around that time, and so I worked, for a period of time, about 10 years, with this digital interactive agency. Made it through 9/11, made it through the market downturn. And so fast forward, between the time I managed to get my MBA, and so I'm kind of in this fast-paced, fast-growing kind of modality, and then come 2008, the economy collapsed, and
yes, it did.
With that, I got laid off, right, and so. For a period of time there, I was sort of lost because I only, in some ways, I would look at my career and say, I've only experienced success, right? Every step, every day was just filled with success. And I continuously kept growing, taking on more responsibility, getting bigger titles, more money. And then one fine day, my boss calls me in and he says, thank you very much. We're laying you off. And it was a big shock to the system. And I thought at that point, that was the very worst thing that ever happened to me in my life. I don't think that as the worst thing as a bad thing even that happened in my life, because, a month and a half later, I decided to start my own company.
And that's, that's what I've been saying to a lot of people about this situation that we're in now. Although it is tragic and loss of life is heavy and it's scary for a lot of people, is also mirrored the other side of that. The exact other side of that is this huge opportunity for transformation and growth at this moment. So to your point, you thought it was the worst day of your life. And I can feel that because I've had that experience myself. I can feel how you felt on that day at that moment. Like the world's over. Yeah. Who I am has been challenged, because I've been this person who's successful and, with titles and money. And now all of a sudden,
what's my identity?
Yeah. Right? Who am I?
I felt ashamed really of losing my job. My sense of identity got lost. So I started the firm, small in the basement of my home. And at that point, we just bought a house. My wife and I just bought a house. We had a pretty significant mortgage. We had a 6-month-old baby. And I was without
That's just the right time to get laid off and start a business, Praveen. Everybody does that.
Yeah. So,
for those out there who have not been in the entrepreneurial space, that actually is the norm. It's like there's never the right, perfect moment to start anything. And so you had a huge mortgage, you just laid off, you had a 6-month-old baby. Necessity. You had to do something, right? Nobody was hiring at that time.
Correct. Yeah, I went to a couple of interviews and I wouldn't have hired myself because I was so depressed and out of it.
Yeah. How did those interviews go?
I was horrible. I was just horrible. I wouldn't have hired myself.
No.
But a good thing that they didn't hire me, because then I started, and so here we are 13 years later. I'm still on this entrepreneurial journey. And not just, starting a business is certainly one thing, but also I would say being in the business has challenged me as a person, as a human being, in ways that I didn't anticipate. I could never have anticipated would happen.
Talk about that a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, for first few years of, the business was very exciting, right? So I was growing the business, hiring employees, growing pretty rapidly. There came a point about 5-6 years into the business where I was ready to have a breakdown, a nervous breakdown, as one might call it. I was extremely stressed, extremely anxious, worried. I saw everything as a problem, and it just became too much, to the point where I even considered ending my life. And it was so, because I built up so much stress and anxiety about the business. Not that things were going bad; they were good, but it was just too much for me to handle. And I remember, one morning waking up and really putting a call out to the universe, saying, "Hey, universe, this is it for me. I mean, this is coming as close as I can take. I need help. If you exist, if you're there, listen to this plea that I'm making." And it's, I guess the universe heard. It's surprising.
The universe heard. You're here.
I'm here.
You're thriving, right? Yeah. So what happened?
What happened was about a month later, thereabouts, I went to this kind of leadership seminar, where I met certainly a couple of wonderful speakers, one of whom was Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, who is one of the most renowned management leadership
I've
thinkers.
read some of his books.
Yeah. So he was one of the speakers, and the other speaker was Dr. Sri Kumar Rao. And so, yes. And so it was during Dr. Rao's session that I really got the answers to many of the existential questions that I had been grappling with. Questions like, what's the meaning of my life? What's my purpose? Why do I exist? Why does the universe exist? Why does the sun, moon, and the stars and the planet exist? Right? And so a lot of these questions have been dogging me for a while, and it was really through Dr. Rao's wisdom that he taught that I could start to find the answers to a lot of these questions. He didn't provide the answers; he provided the tools that allowed me to find my own answers.
Isn't that for me? My experience, I've done a lot of that type of work, and it's always been for me. Somebody gives you the tools and then says, "Here, go inquire. I'm going to show you how to use the tools, but you're going to figure out what the answer is here. I'm not going to tell you what it is, and then you adhere to it." Right?
Correct. And what was interesting was that because I was from India, a lot of the wisdom that he shared, they were kind of embodied in some way. I'd heard them, through various means. Just growing up, I'd collected them, but I'd never put them all together in a meaningful fashion. They didn't all kind of connect. And so, what it really allowed me to do, the tools that Dr. Rao gave in his session and future sessions really allowed me to kind of put everything together and really help me expand my knowledge of my purpose in the world, and really what the universe, the sun, moon, and the stars are all about. And so I've been on this journey now for almost 9 years since that time. And every day I take one step forward, or at least try to take one step forward, and try to improve myself to be a better person, better human being, and both to the external world, but also more importantly to the internal world within me. And so, greater understanding of who I am as a person allows me to present myself in a better sense to everybody else that I come into or have the fortune to come into contact with.
So how has that changed your business life?
So these days, I'm not as stressed. I'm not as anxious.
You can see it. I mean, you can see it on your face. The way that you occur in the world is just always happiness and joy. That's been my experience. And how long have we known each other now? 4 or 5 years? When did you join EO?
2014.
Yep. 15. So I was here in 2012. I joined. So we've known each other 6 years now.
Yeah.
And that's always been my experience of you as one of, light and joy and happiness. And that's exactly why we're such good friends, because we're on that same pathway, right? It's the same exact pathway. Different ways of getting there completely.
Correct. Yeah.
At the same spot. Yeah.
Yeah. And, a lot of this wisdom, like you were talking about, whether it's Patanjali's Yoga Sutras or the Bhagavad Gita, or any of these, wonderful wisdom traditions and texts, scriptures that are out there, they are meant for people like us, people who are flawed, people who are trying to do our best in the world, people who care and have love to give and share. And so to me, all my journey has been these last 8-9 years is really to help embody some of those traditions, that wisdom into my daily life, into my life as a businessman, as a person who employs other human beings, as a person who is a father, a husband, a son. In every phase of my life, I try to incorporate it. And I'm by no means perfect. I'm human. I have a long path to travel.
That human condition.
And so all one can do is just take one step forward every day, or at least attempt to take one step forward, and try to incorporate those wonderful wisdom and knowledge into my daily life. Yeah.
So I'm a huge fan of meditation. I am convinced that it will change the world. Talk to me about your meditative practice. How has that impacted your life, and what do you do on a daily basis? Is it a daily practice, and what's your take on it?
Yeah, it's definitely a daily practice. So I have when I can, again, it doesn't have to be, it's not perfect. It's not, but it's, I try to do it as much as possible, which is every morning after I wake up. One of the first things I have this process that I go through where I'll first start the day with doing my yoga. So I'll do about 25 minutes of my yoga. Then I will take a shower and then do some reading of wisdom, tradition, any kind of books, spiritual books, philosophical books, anything along those lines. So I'll spend about 20 minutes reading. And then I'll spend another 20 minutes to half an hour meditating. And the meditation, takes all shapes and forms. And it's also evolves. It's a journey as it has been these past many, many years. But it also changes. And so, there's no one way to do meditation is my experience.
Mine too. I had an instructor at Kripalu tell me in a breakout session at one point. She asked the class, she said, "What's the best form of meditation?" And people would raise their hands and give different traditions of meditation and styles of meditation. And at the end, she said, "No, it's the one you do regularly. That's it. Whatever form that takes." It's the regularity of actually doing it that's the important part. Doesn't matter what the tradition is or how it manifests. So I'm on the same page as you are with that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the matter of and to me meditation is finding a place at home that I've kind of made into kind of a meditative space. So I sit there, I cross-legged, I'm sitting there. I'm sitting in front of a space that I've created, which have different deities, iconography, photos, things of that nature. And my meditation is when it started out. I'll talk a little bit about when it started. When it started out, I used to sit down, and I could. I wouldn't know what to do. So that's kind of where I started out in my meditative practice. I'd be like, okay, what do I do now? I'm closing my eyes, I'm breathing here. What do I do? And then there are different tools. One is breath meditation. So you take deep breaths in, you concentrate on your breath, and you think of the breath as something that is cleansing your body, right? So you're inhaling all the energy, the vitality from the universe, and you're exhaling all the impurities or the inconsistencies that you have built up in your body. You exhale them, and so that's one simple tool. Another tool that I've used is just the tool of watching the mind, which is closing the eyes and just being the observer or the witness and watching the mind do its thing. And so when as I remember, what used to happen is I would have a train of, I would say, okay, I'm going to watch the mind. I'm watching the mind. And then I would get into the thought, and the thought would take me off somewhere, right? And then there would come a point where I'd be like, oh, I was supposed to be watching the mind, not being in the thought. Oh, I'm here now. I'm going to watch the mind again. And then I'd be off on a thought, on a thought again. And so what happened was so I would have a thought, and then there'd be the small space, and then I'd be on the next thought, and then be a small space. And over time, just doing this practice, regularity, as you mentioned it, what happened was that space between the thoughts started increasing little by little. And there came a point where I could kind of go into that space. And I would go into the space where there really wasn't any thought. I knew I was there because I was aware and conscious, but there was no thought around it. And so it was kind of a very quiet place. Then the regularity and kind of going through this, what I've found is you can go deeper and deeper and deeper into that space. And there's some wonderful things that I have experienced as part of those moments that I cherish a lot.
Yeah, I've had similar experience. And did you grow up with any knowledge of meditation? Was it part of sort of, you come from the Hindu tradition?
I do come from.
Okay, was that part of what was taught when you were young?
Yeah, it wasn't quite taught as meditation. It was taught more as two parts. One is devotion. So devotion and to a superior power, superior being, whatever that being may be. It could be, a desk, a chair, a snake, an elephant, a monkey, a human being, whatever, right? Or formless, right? Anything. So the tradition doesn't put any boundaries on what you consider as important to you. So there's the devotion part of it, and then there was the chanting part of it. There was a lot of scriptural texts that, and so that's certainly a part of my repertoire of meditation, which is some days or many times I'll take a mantra, and mantra meditation is a form of meditation. You chant the mantra over and over, and it's incredible that how much power that has. Some of these mantras they generate sound energies and vibrations.
Amazing. Yeah. I've had that experience being in kirtan, and with drums and chanting, and it's all Hindu chanting. Yeah. And that repetition, it oh my gosh, you start at one spot and you end up somewhere completely different where it just takes you away. And it's, to your point, it's that sound energy, and and it's all the people around when you're in that sort of an experience, right? Just a fabulous, amazing experience. So you sometimes use mantra in chanting in your practice?
I do. Mm-hmm. I use mantras more often these days than not, and especially at the beginning of my meditation. So even within one session of meditation, you can use multiple tools. You can use mantra meditation. You can use breath meditation.
I find I do the same thing. I'll start off with a mantra, like I'll breathe in and I'll say, "I am love," and then I'll breathe out and I'll say, "Love is all there is." So it's in and out. And so I'll use that in the beginning of my meditation, and then I'll just sit, and then I'll start to do, as you said, I'll start to just be aware of the thoughts. And I found that something that worked for me for a period of time, what I found very valuable, was to actually, when I noticed that I was in the thought, as you said, the thought takes you away. When I noticed that I was in the thought, I would label the thought, and I would say, "Oh, that's planning. Yeah. Oh, that's a memory. Oh, this is," and I'd label it, and it got easier for me to be aware of when I was in a thought, when I started to do that.
Yeah.
It's all these different things and tools that you can use in meditation, right?
Absolutely. And that's what is beautiful about the experience of introspecting, going inwards. Mm-hmm. And because it helps, meditation as a broad tool allows one to really understand the inner being of what makes you tick, what's your purpose, where do you exist. And one of the things that I found when kind of I went on this, or I am on this introspective journey, one of the things I found was there were parts of me that weren't very nice. There was anger in parts of me. There was fear in other parts of me.
Oh, human parts?
And what had happened was that I had not fully, like you said, labeled those parts within me. I was just going through life and thinking that those are all okay to have within me. Mm-hmm. And it was the meditative journey and this journey that I've been on really have helped me look at those and say, why is there fear? what is this fear that's inside me, and why does it exist there? And what is this greed that's there? Why does it exist there? What is this anger? Why does it exist there? And shine a light, in a manner of speaking, on those things. And so, for instance, I'll talk about fear inside me, right? So the fear I had was this fear of what's going to happen to me in the future. One of my greatest fears at one point was that I would die destitute, that I would lie on the road with no money, no nothing, nobody caring for me. And unfounded, right? Not likely to happen, but
right.
It was
not unless you focus on it every day.
Correct.
And then there's a likelihood that it could happen.
Exactly.
Because you're paralyzed, right? You become paralyzed in that fear, and then you don't act. You don't do anything.
Yeah. And worse still, I was letting that fear drive a lot of my behaviors and actions.
And your decisions, right?
My decisions, right?
In business, even.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It impacts my business decisions all the time. Or it impacted, rather. And by being able to look at it and understand the fear, and in some ways, Ramdas talks about this kind of 4 steps. Step 1 is being able to look at the what he calls as the samskaras within you, these emotions, these things within you, and being able to look at it objectively, see that they're there. Second is to go sit right next to them. So he talks about when you have fear, go and sit next to it and kind of feel it there and kind of say, "Oh, here I am. I know you're here."
Don't be it, but just
don't be it, and don't try to solve it. Right?
Yeah.
You're not trying to fight it. You're not trying to say, "Go away, fear," because that'll only increase the fear even more.
Of course.
So it's really about going and sitting next to it and saying, "It's okay. Let me try to. I'm here for you. I'm giving you care and attention." Because that's what fear really wants. It wants your attention, and just that process of recognizing, sitting next to it, providing love and care to that fear within me, reduced the power of that fear, kind of brought it down, right, to a point where I was able to ask the questions of why do you exist? What is this fear about? Right? And allowed me to process that particular samskara out of my psyche, right? Or at least reduce it to a great extent.
Right. We're human by nature, the way we're wired, the way the brain works, all of that experience. It's a practice just to manage that, I guess is what it is. Be with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, that's one example of kind of what I've been able to work through in the meditative practices, using all of these different tools to really understand myself a little bit better and get more comfortable inside and be more calm and more blissful in life than I used to be.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that because I haven't known you ever to not be any of those things. So, I'm trying to envision you as being a depressed person, and I can't. I don't, because you've never occurred that way for me. So I don't know what that is. I only know this Praveen. And I'm blessed to know this Praveen. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Let me ask you, the meditation and this introspection, there will be some of our entrepreneurial friends and folks that are in that sort of mindset, who are running organizations, businesses, and can relate to the stress and the anxiety that you talked about earlier. I certainly can have been in that spot before where it all seemed hopeless, right? And looking back now, I say, that was just a huge opportunity because it forced me to do this, which led to this, right? Whatever the outcome was that ended up being positive. Has meditation helped you, since you had that moment in 2008 that was traumatic and then turned into this great business that you built? Have you had other times during that 13-year period of time where things have happened where in the past you would have gone down the rabbit hole of being depressed and stuck and not able to deal with whatever it was. Has meditation helped you to kind of short circuit that?
Absolutely. One of the things that I think when whether it's meditation or other kind of practices,
and whatever the introspective practice is,
right. So there's intellectual practices too, which is reading the scriptures, reading the wisdom, and learning that knowledge. Right. It's called Jnana Yoga. It's a type of yoga, but it's called Jnana Yoga. There are 4 types of yoga: Raja Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and there's one more. I forget Karma Yoga, of course. And so Jnana Yoga is the concept of reading the scriptures and using the intellectual mind to understand what this universe is all about. Karma Yoga is the concept of doing duty, the sense of duty, karma, and taking action in the world, but not really thinking about the results, right? Really focusing on the here and the now.
That's not the norm for an entrepreneur, right? The entrepreneur always thinks of what's the result? What am I driving to? At least in the United States, that competitive, what's my end game? What am I getting to? I'm seeing a shift in the entrepreneurial community, very much so to what you're talking about, which is more of a service aspect. How can I be of service in the world? Especially in our entrepreneurs organization, right? We're seeing sort of this global initiative of entrepreneurs that are saying, I don't want that to be what's in it for me anymore. I want it to be what's in it for us, which is an amazing place.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's one of the things that I would say is that it's setting a goal in of itself is not the bad thing, right? It's everybody has goals and should have goals in many ways, and everybody should strive to achieve them. It's when I put my happiness on the outcome and say, if I achieve that goal, then I will be happy. If I don't achieve that goal, then I will be sad and depressed.
Yes.
It's the if clause that's associated with the goal that causes most consternation, right?
Yes.
And so a lot of the work that I have done is really to say, hey, here's a goal. I'd love for my company to do XYZ business. This is revenue. I'd love my customer satisfaction to be 100%, whatever, right? And I'm going to do everything today, this moment, to try and achieve those goals. Whether I achieve the goal or not is really not under my control. That is really there are too many forces, too many factors, COVID-19 included.
So many.
That
Who could have seen this coming, right? Nobody.
Exactly. Nobody. You have no control, right?
No.
Over the outcome. So
that's the illusion, isn't it, though?
That is the illusion. Right? And so, it's about, the mountaineer who's trying to climb Mount Everest. And if they put all their joy in getting to the top of Mount Everest and saying, I will be happy when I reach that mountain. And guess what? If you happen to reach the mountain after that really arduous journey, you're going to stand on the top of that peak for about a minute, take a couple of pictures maybe, and then start your way down. And so the time you spend on top of that mountain is very, very little because you're off to your next goal. And so those moments of happiness, if you align them with your goals, are going to be few and far between. And that was the mistake I used to make before.
I would too. And it goes back to your earlier comments about things, owning things and, having it be about something other than what's inside you in this spiritual journey.
Yeah. And it's really about the journey, right? It's about being every day, enjoying the journey, the moment of right now. The power of now, as Eckhart Tolle calls it, and trying to embrace whatever exists right now, and to enjoy the presence of being in this very moment.
And in this moment, that's not such an easy thing to do, right? There's a lot of things that we can point to and say, "Oh, this is horrible. This is terrible. We're on lockdown. I don't see my friends. I mean, no, my business isn't operating. I'm not. There are so many reasons, considerations to think that things are bad, but isn't it an opportunity to just be with what is and see what's there?
Correct. It's all about using this time to really maximize. I'm using this time to maximize a lot of my practices. Right. Doing more meditation.
Doing more meditation now than I have ever done.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Being more introspective, being kind, finding ways to be kind. And I mean, there's such an opportunity to be kind and caring and loving to
there is
so many people, being of service. And so what a wonderful opportunity the universe has provided for me and for many other people to be of service in whatever way we can. I mean, I can't find a vaccine. I'm not trained enough to find a vaccine for COVID-19. But in my business, there's ways I can use technology to help, the people who might be able to find a vaccine. Right. And so,
right. So but that part that you play is a very important part of helping that whole thing happen. So doing what you can where you are is the important thing.
Yeah. And doing it for me, it's to do it with a sense of, I'm doing this because this is what the universe wants me to do at this point.
I have to keep coming back to that, my friend, because I very easily slip back into for instance, I moved to Manhattan a month ago. What great timing to move to Manhattan. And my primary reason for doing that was because I love people and I want to be around that energy and the people and enjoy the lifestyle of being in so many people.
Yeah.
And now that's exactly what you should not do if you want to survive.
Yeah.
So I had to wrestle with that a short while. But thank God I have this practice, this introspective practice where I can say, okay, well, that's not available now. Now, what is? Right? I have a book coming out in 60 days and I have some online programming that I want to have ready for that. Guess what? I have unlimited time to create this online programming. Imagine that. Now, would I have been disciplined enough if I had all its nightlife and people and energy around to actually sit and do that? Maybe not. So this is a great opportunity. It's just an example. So what's next for you, my friend?
First of all, congratulations on your book that's coming out.
Thank you.
I want to read it when it comes out.
It's a great first book. It really is. I already have the next one in mind. This one is completed. It's in printing. I'm excited. It's been a long time coming. Thank you so much. So you have your business, you have your introspective practice, you have your meditation, you're married, you have children. I know that your family comes to visit. Your parents come and stay with you different parts of the year.
Yeah.
You have a very active life, like a thriving life. What's next for you? Where are you bringing all of this? You're just in the universe and enjoying it, as we talked about, with no goals or nothing in mind?
What I do have in mind, what I know very clearly is that I want to deepen my introspective practices. I want to deepen, get closer to the universe, the spirit of the universe, and really continue on this journey and this path to understand myself on the one side, and if I can, in some way, use this human body to also bring that wisdom to other people, other folks who might have gone through some of the same struggles that I went through. And if I can help them in their purpose, in their life purpose, then that's really where my service could be offered in this universe. And so whether it be, it's really to be of service. And, if I can, be that way with customers, with my staff, certainly with my family, with my friends, I want to continue to help and support them in that way. And one of the things that I really love is India has this wonderful tradition and culture of stories. And I have a number of a repertoire of thousands of stories that I have picked up and learned and read and enjoyed in kind of telling to other people. And so, and a lot of them are stories that, in some way, shape, or form, help drive and some of the significance of some of this wisdom forward. And so, my hope is that I'll be able to kind of share some of those stories and explain some of this wisdom in a way that will make it easy for folks to kind of connect with.
If anybody can do it, my friend, you can do it.
Thank you, Mark.
I absolutely know that. That's a fabulous, fabulous goal. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. So, Praveen, any last things you'd like to say to folks who are listening? Anything that you'd like to share?
I think that one of the things that a lot of people in today's world are experiencing is potentially fear and anxiety of what the future holds. And one thing from my own experience, what I will share is that the one can never predict the future. We can't really know what's going to happen in the future, right? And really, this fear that is within each of us, that is there asking the question of what's going to happen in the future, is really, is very ephemeral. It's not really there, and so a lot of times it's the fear will just grow and grow and grow and grow. Particularly with a lot of, if you watch the media, right?
Turn it off.
It just, and it's inevitable.
It's not going to help.
Everywhere you turn, it's there, right? So there's no way and so, part of the experience that I've gone through is to really understand the reason why that fear exists, right? And so to be using this time for me to really understand what that fear is and being able to know that there is a way to fight the fear, and it's really through courage, right? And so oftentimes I'll call up the goddess of courage in myself. I say, hey, goddess of courage, give me the courage to fight this fear. Give me the love and give me the discrimination to understand what's real and unreal. And this fear is unreal. And give me the courage to see that this fear is unreal. And so that's, the universe is always there to help. All one has to do is just ask for the courage to fight the fear, and the universe will provide it to go against it.
Always. Without fail. Always. Amazing. Amazing share, my friend. Thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast today. Love the pearls of wisdom, and just grateful, so grateful that you are my friend and in my life and here in the world, sharing your love.
Thank you for having me. I'm really deeply appreciative. And, you are such a wonderful soul. You are, talk about someone who's always happy and who's I just love having you in my life, and I hope we stay friends for the rest of our lives, and then some.
Guaranteed, and then some. That is a podcast for another time. We'll definitely have to reconnect on that one. Yes, and then some. I love it. That will be the name of the podcast. And then some. Okay, great. Listen, folks, I'm going to have all of Praveen's contact information up on wherever you consume this podcast. You'll be able to get a hold of him if you want to. Fabulous guy, just a pillar of wisdom. And I urge you, if you can connect with this human being, your life will be blessed. And so, folks, that is a wrap. Well, folks, thanks for listening in to this week's episode of the Nurse Mark podcast with my guest, Praveen Ramanathan. I hope you really enjoyed this week's episode. I know I loved chatting with my friend about all sorts of different things, but a lot about spirituality and meditation and connecting with really what life is all about and how that's affected his business life and his whole life, really. So thanks again for listening in. And remember, health, happiness, cannabis.